ಆರಾಧ್ಯ ಜಗದ್ಗುರು ಪರಮ ಪೂಜ್ಯ ಶ್ರೀ 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 ಬಾಲಗಂಗಾಧರನಾಥ ಮಹಾಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿಯವರ ದಿವ್ಯ ಆತ್ಮಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಸ್ಕರಿಸುತ್ತಾ 72ನೇ ಪೀಠಾಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರು ಪರಮ ಪೂಜ್ಯರು ಜಗದ್ಗುರುಗಳಾದಂತಹ ಶ್ರೀ 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 ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ನಿರ್ಮಲಾನಂದನಾಥ ಮಹಾಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಭಕ್ತಿಪೂರ್ವಕ ನಮನಗಳನ್ನು ಸಲ್ಲಿಸುತ್ತಾ ಶ್ರೀ ಆದಿಚುಂಚನಗಿರಿ ಕಲಾ ವಾಣಿಜ್ಯ ಮತ್ತು ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಕಾಲೇಜು ನಮ್ಮ ಈ ಕಾಲೇಜಿನ ವತಿಯಿಂದ ಅರ್ಥಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ ವಿಭಾಗ ಮತ್ತು IQAC ವತಿಯಿಂದ ಒಂದು ದಿವಸದ ರಾಜ್ಯ ಮಟ್ಟದ ವೆಬಿನಾರ್ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನ ಆಯೋಜನೆ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳಲಾಗಿದೆ. ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿ ವೆಬಿನಾರ್ನ ವಿಷಯ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ COVID-19 ಆನ್ ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ. ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾಗಿಯಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಎಲ್ಲ ಗಣ್ಯರನ್ನು ಮತ್ತು ಭಾಗಿಯಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನು ಸ್ವಾಗತಿಸಿ ಪರಿಚಯ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡಬೇಕೆಂದು ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾಲೇಜಿನ ಹಾಗೂ ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರು ಆಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ DK ಲೋಕೇಶ್ ಸರ್ ಅವರನ್ನು ಕೇಳಿಕೊಳ್ಳಿ.
ಜೈ ಶ್ರೀ ಗುರುದೇವ್. Good morning everybody. At the outset, I offer my humble pranamas to the divine soul of His Holiness Bhairavekya Padma Bhushana Sri 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 Dr. Balagangadharanatha Mahaswamiji. I offer my humble pranamas to the lotus feet of His Holiness Dr. Sri 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 Nirmalanandanatha Mahaswamiji, and also I offer my pranamas to all the saints of Sri Adichunchanagiri Mahasamsthana Mutt. Respected CEO sir, distinguished guests, senior professors, all the participants, friends, my dear colleagues and students who are in online for this webinar. Today we are in online mode for the webinar on impact of COVID-19 on employment in India, organized by Department of Economics in our college. I am very happy to welcome you all on behalf of and my own behalf for this seminar. When I contacted Dr. Mahesha to arrange a webinar related to current issues in economics, he shows his willingness to talk on the implication of COVID-19 on employment in India. As we found various sources of data, over 10 million Indians have lost their jobs because of the second COVID wave, and around 97% of households have faced income loss since the beginning of the pandemic last year. In view of this, today's topic is relevant to understand the employment situation in India during COVID. When I consulted Dr. Mahesha over phone, he accepted our request and gave his consent to deliver a lecture in this seminar. Dr. Mahesha is working as professor in Department of Studies in Economics and Cooperation at Manasa Gangotri, Mysore. ತುಂಬಾ ಸರಳ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿತ್ವ, ಮಿತಭಾಷಿ, ಕರ್ತವ್ಯಮುಖಿ. ನಾವುಗಳು PhD ಮಾಡೋ ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆಥಡಾಲಜಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ, ಮಾಡೆಲ್ಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ, ಅವುಗಳ ಅಳವಡಿಕೆಯ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಸಹಾಯ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಈಗಲೂ ಸಹ ರಿಸರ್ಚ್ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಕಾಣ್ತೇವೆ. ಈಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಸ್ಮಾರ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ ಮ್ಯಾಥಮೆಟಿಕಲ್ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ಸ್. ಈಸ್ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲೈಸ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಥಿಯರಿ, ಕ್ವಾಂಟಿಟೇಟಿವ್ ಮೆಥಡ್ಸ್, ಅಪ್ಲೈಡ್ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ಸ್ and efficiency and productivity analysis. Professor Mahesha has a wide profile in his young career. He did his master degree at University of Mysore on 1993 with second rank, and the doctoral degree on 2009. He has 15 years service in PG Department of Economics and Cooperation, Manasa Gangotri, Mysore. 13 students have registered under his guidance for PhD, out of which 7 candidates are awarded. is 35 research articles published in various refereed journals. He has presented 44 research papers in various state, national, and international seminars, and 7 papers were published in seminar proceedings. He has published 5 books and ISBN number. He served as a member for more than 16 academic bodies. He delivered more than 30 lectures as guest in different colleges and universities. Today, Dr. Mahesha is with us in online mode, and he is going to deliver lecture on impact of COVID-19 on employment in India. So, wholeheartedly, I welcome Professor Mahesha, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
I'm also happy to introduce and welcome distinguished Professor and Registrar Dr. Shivachithappa. Dr. Shivachithappa is appointed as Registrar of Tumkur University for his academic and administrative performance. ತುಂಬಾ ಸರಳ ಜೀವಿ, ಒಂದು ಬಾರಿ ಪರಿಚಯ ಆದರೆ ಎಂದೂ ಸಹ ಅವರು ಮರೆಯಲ್ಲ. ನಮ್ಮಂತಹ ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣ ಕಾಲೇಜುಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಕಾಳಜಿ, ವಿಶೇಷವಾದ ಕಾಳಜಿ ಇದೆ. ಇವರು ನಮ್ಮ ತುಬಿನಕೆರೆ PG ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಂಥ ಅರ್ಥಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ ವಿದ್ವಾಂಸರಾಗಿರ್ತಂಥ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಓಡಿ ಹೆಗ್ಡೆ ಅವರ ಒಡನಾಡಿಗಳು. ಅವರಿಂದ ತುಂಬಾ ಜ್ಞಾನವನ್ನು ಸಂಪಾದಿಸಿಕೊಂಡು ನಮ್ಮ ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಅವರು ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಸೇವೆಯನ್ನು ಸಲ್ಲಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇವರ ಪ್ರೊಫೈಲ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೂ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಇದೆ. He did his master degree at Bangalore University on 1996 and his doctoral degree on 2006. He has 2 years experience of UG and 15 years service in PG Department of Economics at Tubinakere. He has 11 years research experience. 25 students have registered under his guidance for PhD and all of them awarded PhD. He produced 27 books with ISBN number. 5 text-related books are published. He has done one of the major research project. He has participated and presented 48 research papers in various state, national, and international seminars. He has organized 10 international conferences. He has administrative experience in different 11 bodies. Now he is working as registrar for Tumkur University. So I welcome Dr. Shivachithappa wholeheartedly.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And also it is my privilege to introduce our Honorable CEO, Dr. N.S. Ramegowda, sir, who is connected via online as chief guest. He is a good academician, able administrator, ಕ್ರಿಯಾಶೀಲರು, ಅಧ್ಯಯನಶೀಲರು, ವಿಷಯಗಳನ್ನ ಕೆದಕುವುದರ ಮೂಲಕ ಚರ್ಚೆಗೆ ಜೀವ ತುಂಬುವ ಶಕ್ತಿ ನಮ್ಮ CEO ಸರ್ಗೆ ಇದೆ. Our CEO started his as a teacher in a rural college in Kanakpura near Bangalore, and with hard work he rose to the positions of reader and professor and principal, and served the university as member of academic council, member of senate and syndicate. Later he served IGNO as a regional director at Bangalore and as a director at head office in Delhi. His rich experience in area, he has absorbed as Vice Chancellor for Open University. His rich experience in the area of open and distance learning made to take up the responsibility of Vice Chancellor of Karnataka State Open University, Mysore. He established Karnataka State Open University to international standards. We are happy. So I welcome our CEO, sir. Welcome, sir. Welcome, sir. And also we are happy. Number of participants from various colleges have registered and joined us in online. Iranya from Barmaya College, Dr. Ravindra from SCFGC, Chandrayapatna, Dr. Dayanand from Karyappa College, Madikeri, Dr. Putraju, Dr. Rupa from Arnis College, Mysore, Dr. Prabha, Dr. Prasad, and Dr. Prakash M. All are participated via online. So I welcome all the participants who joined us. Thank you, sir. And also my warm welcome in the all the participants on behalf of our college. I welcome my dedicated and beloved teachers, ministerial staff of college, and my students, and also my special welcome to Dr. Manjunath MK, Assistant Professor of Kannada, who has providing technical support to our webinars. Once again, welcome to all participants and all the supporters who have supported to our webinar. Thank you, Nanda.
ಗಣ್ಯರನ್ನ ಅತಿಥಿ ಗಣ್ಯರನ್ನ ಪರಿಚಯಿಸಿ ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನು ಸ್ವಾಗತ ಕೋರಿರುವ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾಲೇಜಿನ ಪ್ರಾಂಶುಪಾಲರಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಬಿ.ಕೆ. ಲೋಕೇಶ್ ಸರ್ ಅವರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ವಾಗತವನ್ನ ಕೋರುತ್ತಾ ಮುಂದಿನ ಹಂತದಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಾಸ್ತಾವಿಕ ನುಡಿಗಳನ್ನ ನುಡಿಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಕೆ ಶಿವಚಿತ್ತಪ್ಪ ಸರ್, ರಿಜಿಸ್ಟ್ರಾರ್, ತುಮಕೂರು ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ, ಇವರಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಮೂಲಕ ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾರೆ.
ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Good morning to you all. Respected Professor N.S. Ramegowda sir, Honorable former Vice Chancellor of Karnataka State Open University and present CEO Sri Adichunchanagiri Shikshana Samsthe Nagamangala, and my colleague Professor M. Mahesha, Professor of Economics at the University of Mysore, and all the faculty members of Sri Adichunchanagiri College of Arts and Commerce, and webinar coordinator and principal of this college, Dr. B.K. Lokesha, and all the participants in this webinar. At the outset, I congratulate all the faculty members of the Department of Economics and IQAC, Sri Adichunchanagiri College of Arts and Commerce, for having chosen a very relevant topic for state level webinar, that is on impact of COVID-19 on employment in India. Dear friends, as you all know that coronavirus pandemic brought the economy of India to a halt over the past 1 year, and numerous people have lost their jobs, especially women and weaker sections of the society. A recent study in Delhi found that in 8 months, the unemployment rate in the national capital increased by 17%, with about 83% of the women respondents choosing to permanently opt out of participating in the workforce. A similar trend has been observed throughout the country, and this at a time when the participation of women was already declining in the workforce with each passing year. As per Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, CMIE, estimates between mid-2016 and early 2020, the female labor participation rate, which is the percent of women working out of all women falling in the working age, fell from 16.4% to about 11%. And now it has been estimated that this number might have further been pushed this figure down to 9% due to this pandemic. CMIE data also stated that while women accounted for only about 10.7% of the total workforce in 2019-20, they formed about 13.9% of the job losses India witnessed in April 2020. What's worse is the fact that by the time November rolled about, while most men recovered their jobs, women did not have the same fate. The overall unemployment rate for August 2020 was 8.35%, and the next month it dropped to less than 7%. Then it rose to a rather higher level of 9.06% in December 2020. The volatility has some implications for the labor market and also earnings. This confuses people as to whether to enter the labor market or not. This could rather lead to discouragement effect in the sense of the people might be dropping out of the labor force for more speedily than they did before. Then unemployment rates would be an underestimate as the denominator is not stable. India's unemployment rate is 24.1% despite the 77% literacy rate. Blame it on the right year 2020 centers on with the pandemic's emergence. Though the figures are discouraging, the creativity and the various fields the year brought to the forefront cannot be ignored. The past few years also pushed the mechanism of remote working, allowing people from all geographies to jump into the race and compete with the old players. Jobs in the tech world like artificial intelligence and robotics and others, including healthcare, digital marketing, and alternate energy sources, will soon occupy the top heap of the available opportunities. Thanks to the transformation, these fields are bring to the work landscape. A major change witnessed during these times is the upliftment of weaker sections, including women, and their participation in the workforce as key contributors. They have entered the scenario and are here to mark their permanent presence. Undoubtedly, the COVID-19 pandemic in India has very severely impacted rather negatively the employment figures of India since early 2020. We have seen so many scenarios since March 2020, like corona infection in huge number, corona testing, containment zone, safe home, quarantine, mask, sanitizer, PPE kits, rushing of ambulances, heltering, skeltering of the health personnel, that is doctors, nurses, paramedical staff, other support staff, police personnel, and most shocking, helpless deaths. Side by side, we have also seen another type of scenarios like lockdown in industrial units. A beeline of the jobless laborers with hungry children, women, elderly family members carrying belongings heading towards their native villages. Those who were lucky to get a public transport used it, but millions of hapless migrant laborers, including their families, took to the street for their native places or unknown places. The most intriguing scene which gave me unspeakable pain is that while crossing over hundreds of kilometers on feet along with the national highways, these laborers lost their nationality. The factories where they have given their sweat and toil for years drove them away without making any arrangement for their shelter and food. These Indian nationals did not get any help from the government on the way. Some of them, when about to enter their own villages, was denied entry. They locked vacant across the bamboo barricade. Police have grabbed them midway and put them wherever they liked. as if these migrant laborers were war evacuees. These pictures were not only about unemployment, but have raised several questions which our welfare state could not answer. Small traders and laborers were most impacted by the coronavirus lockdown in India, with over 91 million people losing their employment. In April 2020, over 119 million Indians lost their jobs, including entrepreneurs and salaried workers in India. In contrast, agriculture saw an addition of 5% from farmers as compared to the fiscal year 2021. The sudden emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic is dealing a severe blow of the state economies, businesses, and also workers. First and foremost, states are strengthening their healthcare capacity. In the event, the demand for medical services surge. Ensuring there are enough licensed healthcare professionals is a key component in this preparation. States are also restricting access to in-dining restaurants, theaters, concert halls, some retail stores, and other non-essential businesses where large groups of people risk coming into close contact with one another. Additionally, public health officials and experts have warned Indians to stay home as much as possible and avoiding doing anything that requires close contact with others. Many other businesses have voluntarily closed to protect their employees and the public as a whole. Perhaps the most visible closure has been the nearly universal shutdown of the professional sports industry. Those exposed to the virus are being advised self-quarantine for at least 14 days, presenting financial challenges for workers without paid sick leave. These unprecedented challenges are having economic ripple effects across the country as thousands of Indians unexpectedly find themselves out of work with the potential for significant increases in unemployment. States are taking action to address the employment concerns facing and to protect those who are no longer able to work. Some immediate issues on the minds of policymakers include expanding paid leave for workers, preparing state unemployment insurance benefit programs for surges in demand, and helping businesses transition to full-time teleworking. Amartya Kumar Sen's concept of entitlement refers to a person's ability to acquire goods. Achieving this capability usually depends on the production potential of the person and the opportunity to sell or exchange his or her labor. Contrary to the conventional economic concept of food supply, Amartya Kumar Sen's entitlement theory argues that food security could be in jeopardy if capacity building is hampered. Those most affected by the corona epidemic are those whose entitlement or ability of exchange depends on their own or others' movements. For example, the corona epidemic has reduced the source of income for urban migrant workers in the urban informal sector or made it impossible for them to exchange the kind of labor they sell. According to the Google COVID-19 Community Mobility Report, in the corona situation due to various health restrictions, the movement of people or public transport has decreased by 56%, in the raw market by 41%, and in shopping malls by 72%. The coronavirus disaster has caused two important types of employment loss, such as temporary lockdown, induced job loss, and permanent impact job loss. Temporary job loss due to lockdown in the country for 2 months was estimated to be in between 12 and 17 million. shutdown of the major 4 sectors in the economy has created this jobless. 7 million jobs in the micro, small and medium enterprises MSME sector, 5 million jobs in the transport sector, 3 million jobs in the construction sector, and more 3 million jobs in the manufacturing sector were disappeared temporarily. An additional 10 million people have become jobless in the agriculture sector. If that figure were added, the number of temporary jobs would end up somewhere around 25 million. The coronavirus pandemic has substantially impacted MSMEs across all sectors of the economy. Many of MSMEs are facing distressed time due to limited sale and shortage of funds to maintain business operations and pay off salaries of the employees and workers, which is propping up the unemployment rate in the poor and low middle income families. There are around 18 million people working in the sector and many more from their family rely on it. Employees in the MSMEs in all sectors are facing a threat of permanent layoff. Loss of these jobs has appeared as the main challenge of COVID-19, impact on livelihood of the people working in the MSMEs. Many of the job loss caused by government imposed restrictions or social distancing measures are temporary. However, most of the layoffs in the MSMEs caused by the unavoidable decline in the trade and output are permanent. Another harshly affected group is the people working in the private non-government education institutes. Many low-income school teachers in both rural and urban areas throughout the country have lost their jobs because the students of those private institutions cannot pay the fees. Students at these schools are mainly from poor families, many of whom left the school forever due to the crisis. At this time of the corona epidemic, not only students but also teachers are in the threat of dropout. Especially extreme economic uncertainty has risen among teachers working in private kindergartens and non-government schools all over the country. Many of them are being forced to move to low-level occupations and a new poor class is being created. With these few words, I take this opportunity once again to congratulate the organizers for giving me an opportunity to participate in this state-level webinar. ಇನ್ನು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದೆರಡು ನಿಮಿಷಗಳ ಮಾತು ಮುಗಿಸ್ತೀನಿ. ಎರಡನೇ ಅಲೆಯಿಂದ 30 ಲಕ್ಷ ಉದ್ಯೋಗ ನಷ್ಟ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂದಾಜು ಮಾಡಲಾಗಿದೆ. ಕೋವಿಡ್ ಸಾಂಕ್ರಾಮಿಕದ ಎರಡನೇ ಅಲೆಯಿಂದಾಗಿ ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂದಾಜು 30 ಲಕ್ಷ ಮಂದಿ ಉದ್ಯೋಗವನ್ನ ಕಳೆದುಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ರಾಜ್ಯ ವಾಣಿಜ್ಯ ಮತ್ತು ಕೈಗಾರಿಕಾ ಮಹಾಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯ ಒಂದು ವರದಿಯಿಂದ ತಿಳಿದು ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಕೈಗಾರಿಕೆಗಳು, ಸಣ್ಣ ಪುಟ್ಟ ವ್ಯಾಪಾರಸ್ಥರು, ಮಾಲ್ಗಳು, ಅಂಗಡಿಗಳು ಸೇರಿದಂತೆ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ವಾಣಿಜ್ಯ ವಲಯಗಳನ್ನು ಪರಿಗಣಿಸಿದರೆ ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಪ್ರಮಾಣದ ಉದ್ಯೋಗ ನಷ್ಟ ಆಗಿರುವುದು ಕಂಡು ಬರುತ್ತದೆ. ಇನ್ನು ಈ ಸಾಂಕ್ರಾಮಿಕದಿಂದಾಗಿ ರಾಜ್ಯದ ಉದ್ಯಮಗಳು ತೀವ್ರ ಸಂಕಷ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಲುಕಿವೆ. ಸಹಜ ಸ್ಥಿತಿಗೆ ಬರಲು ಕನಿಷ್ಠ ಇನ್ನು 2 ವರ್ಷ ಬೇಕಾಗಬಹುದು ಎನ್ನುವಂತ ಅಂದಾಜಿದೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ತಿಂಗಳಿಗೆ ಸುಮಾರು 50,000 ಕೋಟಿ ಮೌಲ್ಯದ ವಾಣಿಜ್ಯ ವಹಿವಾಟು ನಡೆಯುತ್ತೆ. ಇನ್ನು ಕೋವಿಡ್ ಎರಡನೇ ಅಲೆಯಿಂದ ನಿಯಂತ್ರಣ ಆಗಲು ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಮೇ ಮತ್ತು ಜೂನ್ ತಿಂಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಲಾಕ್ಡೌನ್ ಅನ್ನು ಜಾರಿ ಮಾಡಲಾಯಿತು. ಇದರಿಂದಾಗಿ ಕೈಗಾರಿಕೆ, ವಾಣಿಜ್ಯ, ವ್ಯಾಪಾರ ವಲಯ ಸುಮಾರು 75,000 ಕೋಟಿ ಮೌಲ್ಯದ ವಹಿವಾಟು ನಷ್ಟವನ್ನು ಅನುಭವಿಸಿದಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ, ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಆತ್ಮೀಯರು ಹಿರಿಯರಾದ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಮಹೇಶ್ ಅವರು ತಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ವಿಶೇಷ ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯದಾಗಲಿ. ಈ ಒಂದು ವೆಬಿನಾರ್ ಇಂದ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಚರ್ಚೆ ಆಗಲಿ, ಉದ್ಯೋಗ ಸೃಷ್ಟಿ ಹೇಗೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಮಹೇಶ್ ಅವರು ತಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಅನುಭವದಿಂದ ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ತಿಳಿಸ್ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅವಕಾಶಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ವಂದನೆಗಳು. ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು ಸರ್.
To one and all, respected Honorable former Vice Chancellor Professor Ramegowda sir, CEO of the Adichunchanagiri Shikshana Trust, and the Registrar of Tumkur University, and my colleague and friend, Professor K. Shivachithappa sir, and the principal of the Adichunchanagiri College, and the organizer of this webinar, Professor Lokesha, and all the colleagues of and all his colleagues of the college, and all the participants of this the state level webinar on say the COVID impact on the impact on employment in India. So, as already the Professor Shivachithappa sir has given some background related to the impact of COVID-19 on the employment in India, and my business here is to continue the words of Professor Shivachithappa regarding the impact of COVID-19 on employment. So first, I would like to introduce the topic of impact of COVID-19 on employment in India with a background of the COVID-19 or the period before COVID-19, because what we are now facing, that is the economic problems which we are facing now, are the economic slowdown, employment loss, and the other problems of the Indian economy is not started with COVID-19 or because of COVID-19. So because of this reason, first we should have to look the background of the picture or the background picture before the COVID-19, or the status of Indian economy before the COVID-19. So in terms of the growth before COVID-19, and more specifically on the employment related status and its structure and composition of the Indian labor force, so a few years before to COVID-19. So with this knowledge of the status of Indian economy prior to COVID-19, so that of course gives us some idea of the probable effect of this COVID-19 on the employment sector. So hence, so the first few minutes I will discuss about the situation of Indian economy prior to COVID-19. So then the 1 year of COVID-19 and its impact on employment in India. So in terms of labor force participation, so then the working force population, so then the unemployment rate, and by the gender, by the reason, by the educational status, and so on. And finally, based on the reports of ILO and the studies and the surveys conducted within India, so my lecture will include some of the policy framework suggested by the surveys and the ILO. So this is just a contents of my lecture or my discussion today. An introduction to this topic, as all of us knew that this COVID-19 impact is more serious compared to the 1918 great influenza or Spanish flu. So this is not only found as the health crisis, though of course it was started in the earlier 2020 as the health related crisis, but laterly and immediately, of course, it has spread into all aspects of the human life, including the economic life. So of course, more than that health related impacts, of course, this COVID pandemic has severe impact on the economy and all the sectors of the economy and every economic activities throughout the world. And this is considered to be the biggest crisis since the Second World War, and almost all the countries of the world and all the sectors within an economy and all the activities, including economic activities, have been affected by this devastating coronavirus. So because of this corona pandemic or COVID-19 pandemic, the world is passing through a great uncertainty, because when this was hit in the first of the early part of the 2020, so we were observed that, so we were with uncertainty. So that's why the world is passing through this uncertainty during this period. And undoubtedly, the coronavirus put the world economy at a major risk, and India is not exception to this risk faced by the world as a whole or all the countries of the world. So this coronavirus differs from all the previous episodes of pandemics in several important ways. Notably, globally synchronized lockdowns and trauma of financial market reinforce one another into an unprecedented economic sudden stop. For these reasons, the COVID-19 global recession is unique. So, because if we have observed the spread of the previous pandemic, so that is not universal. They were not universal in nature. This COVID-19 is universal in nature. So, hence it is considered as a unique in its nature. The crisis has transformed into economic and labor market shock, impacting not only the supply related aspects of the economy but also on demand. The supply related factors include the production of goods and services. That means this COVID-19 not only impacted the production and the production of goods and services related aspects, but also it influenced on both on the consumption and investment. So this disruption in production initially was started in Asia, has spread to supply chain across the world, and of course in many of the works and the opinions by the previous researchers and the economists and also the other the laureates, they are opined that so might be why this coronavirus has spread very quickly throughout the world and affected all the countries of the world and all the economies of the world. One of the reasons might be the globalization. So because of that integration of the world in terms of all the economic aspects, so because of that, of course, compared to all other previous pandemics, say this has a widespread and a quick spread across the states of the world or across the countries of the world. So, and all businesses, regardless of their size, whether it is a large or a medium or the small, so regardless of their size, all businesses are facing serious challenges, especially those in the aviation industry, tourism industry, and hospitality industries, with a real threat of significant decline in the revenue, insolvencies, and job losses in specific sector. So this, because of the spread of this coronavirus, regardless of the economic activities, regardless of the sectors, especially in case of this, say the service sector related, like the aviation industry, tourism industry, hospitality industries are, say, they are more impacted compared to the other kinds of the economic aspects or economic activities. So because of this, the significant decline in the revenue of these types of economic sectors There are some insolvencies also found during this period, and the more specific, of course, related to our analysis is the job losses has been observed in most of the economic sectors. Sustaining business operations, particularly difficult for small and medium enterprises, because so these sector, that is the small and medium enterprises, are more labor intensive one, and of course if you get into the analysis related to the impact of this coronavirus on the joblessness of this, I hope we might have been observed the highest kind of job loss might be observed in case of this SMEs. Following and why, of course, we have been observed these kinds of the revenue losses, then insolvencies of the business, and the job losses across the sectors of the economy due to because of the restrictions that has been imposed by the governments of the world, following like the travel bans, border closures, quarantine measures. So due to because of these, the many workers cannot move to their places of work or carry out their jobs, which has knock on effects on incomes, particularly for the informal and casually employed workers. So the most of the studies, the surveys in the last 1 year, they have been found that so the informal and casual workers are the employees or the workers who are affected much due to because of this coronavirus or the COVID-19 pandemic. Then the consumers in many economies are unable or reluctant to purchase goods and services. So as of course we have been observed and also we have experienced that, and we have followed, many of us we have followed this. There is the impact of the behavior of the consumers during this COVID period. So all of the consumers, so in many of the economies, so either they are unable to purchase goods and services due to because of the loss of the job, and finally due to because of significant decline in the income due to because of the loss of job, and also the many of the consumers were reluctant to purchase goods and services due to because of the spread of this coronavirus, or so with a fear of infecting due to because of purchase of goods and services. So that's why this corona or the COVID-19 pandemic not only affected on the production of goods and services, supply chain, value chains, and so on in the production sector, but also that affected on the consumption sector, that is the consumption of goods and services. And due to because of this environment of uncertainty, so in the production, and also due to because of uncertainty regarding the behavior of the consumers in the purchase of goods and services, so the enterprises are likely to delay the investments and purchase of goods and hiring of workers. So that's why here we have been observed a circular type of impact of this. So that means so both the goods and services sector has been affected due to because of this corona pandemic, and also that is found in case of the consumption of goods and services. So due to because of all these, okay, the effects in almost all the economies, okay, economies or the countries, the economy is stand still. So in the early period of coronavirus, which have been known for all of us, and the prospects of the economy and the quantity and quality of the employment are deteriorating rapidly. So if we come to the employment related aspect, so due to because of that demand side and the supply side impact of the COVID-19, so the prospects of the economy, the economic prospects, growth prospects of the economy, along with the quantity and quality of the employment are deteriorating. Quantity of the employment means that is the size of the employment has been declined, or the unemployment rate has been increased, as of course mentioned by Professor Shivachithappa sir. And also we have been also observed that the quality of the employment are deteriorating. So this quality of the employment is related to probably related to, that is the shift of the employment or the workers from the formal sector to informal sector. the most of the studies and the surveys which are conducted during the 1 year throughout the world and also in Indian case, they have found that, so they have observed that the people or the workers, they have switch over from, so due to because of this COVID-19 effect, from formal work to informal work, and all of us knew that. So what kind of quality which we can expect in informal sector related to the quality of the employment. So that's why both in terms of the quantity and also the quality, the employment is deteriorating rapidly in the last 1 year. And ILO, the International Labour Organization, and even at the individual levels. So some authors, the researchers have done some forecast regarding the impact of this corona pandemic or the COVID-19 pandemic. So these forecasts vary considerably and largely underestimate the situation. So due to because of unavailability of the data, and also it is too early to forecast and too early to say the exact effect of this COVID-19 on the economy as a whole or the world as a whole or on the even employment sector. That's why due to because of that limitation, so the largely these forecasts underestimate the situation, and all of them, either the institution level forecast or the individual level forecast, they of course pointed out that there is a significant negative impact on the global economy. That means the global economy has declined due to because of this COVID-19 impact. So these worrisome figures show the growing sign of a global economic recession. So, and of course, of course, most of my discussion is related to a 1 year of COVID pandemic in Indian context. So, and in the last 2 months, of course, the second wave and the impact of second wave and the data related to second wave related to the employment and unemployment situation in India is available only with the CMI reports. So then, and my discussion much is related to the 1 year of this corona impact on the employment in Indian context. So this is about an introduction to my discussion on the employment, that is the impact of COVID-19 on employment in general and India in particular. So the international organization in its various reports after this COVID or the COVID-19 has published some reports named as the world of work, or the status of the work in the world, or the world of work. So based on that ILO, okay, technical reports or the ILO related reports, the ILO has classified the impact of this corona virus or the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the employment aspects of the economy or the effect on the world of work into three key dimensions. So they are as follows. The one is the quantity of the jobs, that is the impact of the COVID-19 on the quantity of the jobs. Then the second impact they have identified as on the quality of the work, and the third one is the effects on specific groups who are more vulnerable to adverse labor market outcomes. So these are the three key dimensions which has been identified by the ILO, and of course so the ILO has collected the data across the world and also projected or forecasted the COVID impact on the world of work, and of course that is related to world as a whole, and since our talk or our discussion here is related to the impact of COVID-19 on Indian context, so might of course anyone who has to work on the impact of COVID-19 at the country level also has to keep these points in our mind or this dimension in our mind to analyze the impact of COVID-19 on the world of work or the status of the work or the employment in general. And of course, as we were noted earlier, the magnitude of the COVID shock surpasses all the previous episodes of the recessions in the independent India. And of course, earlier we have discussed about the international level. And if we observe the impact of COVID-19 and the shock of COVID-19 on the Indian economy, this COVID shock crosses all the previous episodes of the recessions in independent India. But this impact need to be, that is the impact of COVID-19 on the Indian economy and particularly on the employment sector needs to be understood in the context of the performance of the economy leading to the pandemic. So hence a brief discussion here is needed for us to clearly understand the impact of COVID-19 on the employment sector of the Indian economy with reviewing some say the status of work prior to COVID-19 along with economic growth prior to COVID-19. The Indian economy had average GDP growth of around 8% between 2014 to 2017 because there is a close relationship between the growth of the economy with the employment. So according to our economic theories, as all of us knew that, so there is a positive relationship. And of course there are exceptions, those exceptions which has been even observed in the Indian context and also throughout the world after 2000. So that of course is called as the jobless growth. Which we have been observed, there is an economic growth in the economy. For example, if we take into account the growth of the Indian economy in the early 2000, that is from 2001 to 2000, of course 6 and 7, prior to that global financial crisis, the Indian economy grew at around 8%. But if you observe the economic growth, the job related growth in that particular period, so there was not much improvement in the job. That's why there is a debate in economic theories related to this general that is opinion of a positive kind of relationship between economic growth and employment. So with that few exceptions, so what our economic theory, they expect that, hypothesize that, so there is a positive relationship. So that's why. So why, of course, we should have to look into the economic growth related aspect when we are discussing with the employment generation or unemployment related problems. So because of these reasons. So and hence, so here if you observe the economic growth of the India for this period, that is 2014 to 2017. So there was an 8% growth, but that has been slowed down and that has also been significantly declined to 6.5% in 2018 and 19, and further it has been declined to only 4% in 1 year prior to this COVID problem, that is in 2019 and 20, immediately prior to the pandemic period. So this is the picture of our economic growth, so immediate to this pandemic year. When the pandemic hit, the economy was going through the most prolonged slowdown in the post-liberalization period. So this is another the biggest implication which have been found in Indian context. So during this period of COVID-19, before the period of COVID-19. So when we have observed, the economic growth in the Indian context, so that is the prolonged slowdown which have been observed in the post-liberalization period from 1991 to 2019-20. So that is the prolonged period of slowdown from 2016-17 to 2019-20. So then a slowdown is a period when the GDP growth rate is lower than the previous period. That is the definition of the slowdown. So that's why from 2016-17 to 2019-20, there is a continuous and significant slowdown in the economic growth. That's why this period is considered, that is consecutively 3 to 4 years prolonged slowdown has been observed in Indian context before the pandemic hit. So that's why we should have to look the impact of COVID-19 not as an individual aspect or an individual factor, because the India has or the Indian economy has started its slowdown even before the hit of this COVID-19 pandemic. So that has been, of course, observed from this discussion. And note the duration of this pre-COVID crisis, both in terms of the total quarters of the slowdown as well as the number of the consecutive quarters when the GDP growth rate was falling. That's why there is a continuous slowdown for few quarters period. The longevity of the slowdown, so that is 2017-18 to 2019-20, surpassed not only that of the 1990s, that is the crisis India was faced in 1990s, and because of that new economic policy was introduced, and also due to early 2000. But even this slowdown prior to COVID-19 from 17-18 to 19-20, especially these 3 years of in the India is, but even the global financial crisis and the slowdown in 2011 and 12 and 11, 12 and 12 and 13. That's why if you compare the pre-COVID-19 slowdown in the Indian economy, it is the longest slowdown which we have been observed after the liberalization or in the post-liberalization period. And of course, the GDP growth rate in India in constant prices of 2011 and 12 prices has been shown here from 1952 to 53 to so 2020-21. Of course, in 2020-21, as all of us knew that, so there is a negative growth of GDP. So with that background of the slowdown in the economic growth of India, and as also I have told you that, so that slowdown is prolonged for a longer period of time. So this table shows us the number of the years the slowdown has been observed, and their respective years when the slowdown has been observed, and the total number of the quarters of the slowdown, and the number of the quarters where the slowdown for consecutive period. So if you observe this table, that is the period from 1917-18 to 1919 and 20, as just we have told, and it is a pre-COVID period. Continuously we have 3 years of slowdown in our economic growth, and the total number of the quarters of the slowdown, so out of 12, so it is 10 quarters. In 10 quarters the economy was slowed down, and out of the 10 quarters which the economy has been observed the slowdown in the economic growth, 8 are consecutive in nature. That is the continuously in 8 quarters the Indian economic growth or the GDP has slowed down. So this is the economic growth or the pessimistic growth of the Indian economy even before the hit of COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, that has been, and of course the literature or the researchers have identified some reasons why the Indian economy has, of course, faced such a prolonged period of slowdown in the last 3 years before the COVID-19 hit. So here are a few such reasons are identified by the literature. The causes identified in the literature include the short-run shocks such as demonetization and the rollout of the GST. So these two are considered as the short-run effects or the short-run shocks on the economic growth of India in the short period. And the medium-term factors are the growing of financial facility and long-run financial facility means, so of course all of us know as the students of economics and the teachers of economics, so the NPA has continuously increasing, non-performing assets in the banks has continuously increasing so in the last few years. So because of that, the financial facility has been observed that as a medium kind of effect on this slowdown. Whereas on the long run, the structural weakness such as insufficiently broad-based domestic demand as well as the demand debt-financed consumption. So these are the few reasons that has been identified by some researchers regarding that pre-COVID slowdown in Indian context and yes, domestic factors. And at the international level also, or at the global level also, so the world economy is not say beneficial to the Indian economy. That means the economic growth is also, the Indian economic growth is also slowed because of the global picture or the global factors. So because there was a sharp reduction in the exports of India due to fall in demand at the international level, that's why the growth rate at the international level was also very poor due to because of the various reasons, and one among them, the mainly, of course, some of the countries, especially the US, of course, that has followed some policies under the president of the under the previous president of US, so that is increasing deglobalization or a return to protectionist measures by the United States and retaliatory measures by the partners or the trading partners. So that's why at the international level also the economic growth was not good. So due to because of these reasons, the Indian economy has faced a slowdown of economic growth prior to COVID-19. And these are the points earlier as already mentioned that. So with this, the economic picture, pre-COVID-19 picture. So now let us come to the pre-COVID related status of employment or employment trends leading into COVID crisis. So hence, to discuss the impact of the COVID-19 on employment in India, we should have to look into how the Indian economy performed on the job creation and the quality of work, as well as how the process of structural change was occurring in the years prior to pandemic. That means, so we should also have some knowledge on the status of working or the state of working, the status of job, the status of the quantity of job, the status of the quality of job before the pandemic hit in Indian context. And this is the table. This table shows the labor market, okay, the labor market in the 3 periods related to the working age population, labor force participation, the number of the persons in millions are employed and unemployed and out of the labor force. So there are 5 important indicators have been selected here to have a knowledge on the status of the employment in Indian context. So in terms of percentage, so of course the below in terms of percentage in the same table, so the labor force participation was 55.7%, almost 58% in 11 and 12, but whereas that reduced to 50% in 2018 and 19. And also the workforce participation rate declined from 54.4% to 46.8% in 17 and 18, and 47 or 47.3% in 18 and 19. And unemployment rate on the other round or another way, that has been increased. So almost say 3 times of increase in the unemployment. It was just 2.2. Okay, according to NSS4 data in 2011 and 12, but that has been increased to 5.8 in the unemployment rate in 2018 and 19. So the same kind of picture which we have been observed in the economic growth, of course, has been also found in case of the employment status in terms of labor force participation rate, workforce participation rate, and the unemployment rate. All have been shown that there is a decline. And of course, there are theories in economics. So why there is a decline in this labor force participation rate. So and of course they explain that so because of a decline in the economic growth, so the peoples are not willing to participate in the labor force. Though they have participated in the labor force, there is no guarantee that they could get the job. So because of that negative attitude of the people, that reduces the labor force participation during the time of recession or during the time of this slowdown or economic slowdown. Of course, that has been observed in Indian context. So this is related to the pre-COVID status of employment. That's why the decline in labor force participation, decline in the working population, and increase in unemployment is not just started with or due to because of the COVID-19. It was already started during the slowdown, economic slowdown, or prior to COVID effect. And this employment status of the persons can be analyzed in different forms, in the forms of occupation, in the form of gender, in the form of location, in the form of education, and in the form of formal, informal sector, like this. So we can analyze the status of work, the status of the employment, the status of the unemployment in any economy can be analyzed with all these classifications, with all these classifications. So because of the paucity of the time, and because of the also availability of the data, so my, of course, discussion related to some important classifications, both prior to the pandemic and after the pandemic, that is 1 year during the pandemic, related to these classifications of the status of work or the employment. So one among them here is shown in this slide. This graph represent the unemployment related picture. This is of course shown that the unemployment in India is concentrated among educated youth. So if we classify the persons as illiterate up to primary education, middle, secondary, higher secondary, graduate, PG and above, and the total. So if we just observe this, so what we have been found from this graph is that the highest, okay, the employment is concentrated among the persons who have the education level, graduate and above the graduate. So if you just take, okay, in all the periods, in 11 and 12, 17 and 18, and also 18 and 20, in all the years, so the unemployment rate is concentrated among the educated youth. So it is above 35%. And the same, of course, has been explained in this slide. Same, of course, the same is explained in this slide. Okay, then the next is the first is the pre-COVID status of employment in terms of the level of education. So from that, what we have learned that so the unemployment in India is concentrated with the educated youths, especially so that is the graduate and the postgraduate education. So nearly 35% of those category are facing the problem of unemployment. Then if we again taken into account that is the employment status based on the working status of the employees, whether they are working in formal sector or whether they are working in informal sector. Again, in case of the formal sector, that is the formal regular wage worker, informal regular wage workers, and there are different classifications. And one more classification here is that again the locational classification, that is the rural and urban. If you just observe the total of this formal and the informal, or the total regular and the self-employed and the casual or the daily workers. Again, if you classify the workers into the regular wage workers, both in formal and informal sector, and the self-employed in different names, of course, in CMI data that has been considered: own account workers, employers, unpaid, say, family workers, and they are totally considered as the self-employed workers. And the last but not the least is the daily wage workers or the casual workers. So in the total, okay, in the total, in the total labor force, 90% of the labor force are in informal sector. That is the last cell of this table that shows 90.3. That is almost rounded up to 90. So 90% of the laborers are working in. Hello. Okay, 90% of the workers are in informal sector. Within this 90%, okay, only 23.8, that is around 24% are the regular wage workers, both in case of formal and the informal sector. Say formal sector is a sector which has some the social security benefits. Informal sector, though they are the regular, but there is no such facility of that social net securities. So totally, the regular workers constitute only 24% in the total informal workers, and the self-employed is highest, more than 50%, 52%. So that is the 52% of the informal workers are the self-employed persons, self-employed workers, and so one fourth of the labor force, even in the informal sector, are the casual workers or the daily workers. So for this self-employed persons and for the casual workers, as all of us knew that there is no any social security related measures are available, or so of course the quality of the work, of course, now if you get into the quality of the work, so that the quality of the work in this informal or in generally specifically related to self-employed and the casual workers, the quality of the work is very, very poor compared to regular workers. That's why, so even before the COVID-19, that is in the year 2018 and 19, okay, the India or the Indian labor force, that is the 90% of the Indian labor force was found in informal sector, and within that more than 50% are self-employed, 1/4 of each are the regular workers and the casual workers. Of course, that has been discussed in the following slides. So that is the data given in the above table, gives the proportion and absolute number of the workers engaged in the various employment arrangements in 2018-19 for men and women, and also urban and rural. And of course, if we go back to the previous slide, so again, of course, we come to the rural and urban. One more classification is also there, that is the rural and urban by the sex. And if you just observe this, okay, in case of the rural, formal and the formal workers, though the more formal workers are male compared to female. And overall, for example, if you take, so the 10.1% are the formal regular workers are the males. In related to female, it is only 8.4, and the same is also applicable in case of all. But whereas in case of the casual workers, just you observe that in case of the casual workers, so almost 1% is higher in case of the female, and whereas in case of the unpaid family workers, so it is almost 4 times for females are higher compared to males. So the unpaid family workers, just only 7.6% are the males, 30.8% are the females. That's why both in case of the unpaid family workers and whereas in the casual workers, the female workers are higher. And whereas in comparison between the rural and urban status of the workers in the informal sector, in the informal sector, of course, in the urban, in the rural area, So in all the cases, in all the types of this employment type, so the men's are higher, the males are higher, except as earlier we have noted, unpaid and the casual workers even in the rural area. So that is also, of course, holds good in terms of the urban area also. But compared to the females in the rural area, when you compare the females of the urban area, so you might be have been observed that the females in urban area are higher in the formal and the formal regular and informal regular wages compared to the females of the urban area, rural area. So that's why by this discussion, what we have learnt is that till the day, even with this 70 years of our development, so still 90% of our workers are working in informal sector. Only 10% of our total labor force are working in the formal, and within this informal sector, so more than 50% of the workers are the self-employed, including, of course, the agriculturists that comes under the self-employed according to this UPSS survey of NSSO. And so, and again, so 25% or the 1/4 of the total workforce are casual workers are the daily workers. So these are the, of course, the findings that which we have been observed from this discussion of the informal workers prior to we discuss, of course, in the next, these two slides. The next aspect is a comparison of, because these are the two, okay, that is the institutions or the surveys that provides us the unemployment and employment related status. So the periodic labor force survey, that is a part of our national sample survey organization under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, and the consumer pyramid household survey, it is a part of a Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, a private information institution. So if you just compare the that is the income and the share of the workforce between these two surveys, so the formal, regular and permanent salaried, okay, their share is around 13% in case of the PLSF NSS4 survey, whereas according to CMMI it is around 11.5%. Whereas in case of informal but regular and temporary salaried, so around 12% in case of PLFS, and it is around 11%. And self-employed 51% in case of the PLSF and 48% in CMI, and the casual or daily workers 24 according to the NSS4 data, and it is 30% in case of the CPHS survey. But in terms of the income, just observe in terms of the income, so there is a wide difference in terms of the income between the regular workers and the casual workers with the other group of workers. On the average, so 23,300 is the average monthly income in case of PLFS survey, and it is around 28,900 in case of the CMI survey for regular permanent workers. Whereas in case of the informal sector, though they are regular, but their salary is say that is less than half of that regular workers and which are who are permanent. It is just 9,300 according to PLFS, and it is around 11,000. So and also the same in case of almost same in case of the self-employed. But if you take the casual workers or the daily workers, the average monthly earnings of the daily workers is only 6,000 according to the NSSO survey, but whereas it is around 8,700 in case of this say the CMI survey. So from this, what we can project, okay, are the probable effect of this COVID-19 during the last 1 year. So you can observe that. So as of course earlier I have told you that the most of the workers in the informal sector, they are lost job, and even the regular permanent workers were lost the job. So due to because of that, they switch over from the formal sector to informal sector, and already the casual workers or the workers in the informal sector who are also regularized, their income was just around 9,000 or 6,000 respectively for regular, informal and casual workers before the pandemic, and just assume that what happened to their standard of living, their level of income during the COVID period. So that's why the severe hit of this COVID-19 in terms of this informal sector might be on the casual workers and the self-employed and the informal, even on the informal regular workers. That has been, of course, though there is some variations, but the picture is same between the PLSF and the CMI. That has been, of course, explained in these two. And the another important dimension of the vulnerability of this COVID-19, okay, the COVID-19 might be related to, say, disease. That is, in terms of the sectors, and the ILO has classified the world of work, and they're classified based on the risk they are facing. That's why this table shows the classification of the risk to output, the ILO classification, and the industry, that is agriculture, mining, manufacturing and so on, and the risk classified by the ILO. For example, the agriculture, ILO has classified it as the low to medium risk. The mining is a medium, manufacturing is an high risk. It is at the international level. The electricity, gas and water supply, low. Construction, medium. Trade, high. Medium to high is transport. Hospitality is high. So that's why, so based on the impact, the effect and of the COVID-19 and the risk faced by the workers in this particular sector, so the ILO has classified it to low to medium, medium and high sectors. So, and of course, this table gives us the impact of that. So nearly, that is 23.66% are the casual workers at the international level. Of course, it is, and 51% and 24%. That is so related to Indian context. This is the classification is the international classes. As of course earlier we have noted that this is the percentages, but these are all given in terms of, say, the millions. Okay, so this is the another aspect. That's why. So here also, since the highest number of the workers are nearly 75% of our workers are working in self-employed and the casual or daily workers. So the disproportionate type of effect of this COVID-19 on employment probably on this sector, self-employed and casual and daily workers. And related to unemployment prior to COVID-19 is shown in this graph with the two periods 2011-12 and 17-18 in terms of the percentage with some selected states. That is, so for example, if you take this, okay, the highest, okay, of course, if you compare just in these two periods, in all the states, okay, the unemployment rate was lower compared to 2017 and 18. Okay, in 2011 and 12 is lower compared to 17, 18. For example, if you take Kerala, it was just 6.1%, but whereas in 2017 and 18, according to the PLFS survey of our NSSO, it is 11.4. So in all the states, that due to because of the slowdown in the Indian economy, and also of course that has been observed in almost all the states, even at the state level, the unemployment rate has been increased due to because of that economic slowdown. Of course, that has been observed in this graph between the two periods. And the state of unemployment, of course, in April 2020, as Professor Shivachithappa has already mentioned, the rate of unemployment on the average. On the average, the unemployment rate of India in April 2020 was 23.5%. But this is not same across the states. The highest unemployment rate in April 2020 was observed in Pondicherry with 75.8%, followed by Tamil Nadu, that is 49.8%. Then Jharkhand, that is 47 point. So these states, that is 40 and nearly, okay, that is more than 40% of the unemployment was found in 6 states, and from 20 to 30% in another 5 to 6 states. So that in Karnataka, so the unemployment rate was almost 30%, 29.8%. That means if you take the average, if you take the average, so nearly 6 and 3, almost 8 to 10 states have higher unemployment rate than the mean or the average unemployment rate of India, that is 23.5, and the least unemployment rate was observed in Himachal Pradesh in the 1 month immediate after the impact of COVID-19 in India due to because of the lockdown in 2020 April, that is 2.2 in Himachal Pradesh. So this is about the state-wise unemployment rate in April 2020. So now, of course, now we are discussing about, so with that background, of course, with that background of the pre-COVID-19, so that has been exacerbated during the COVID period. So the last graph that has been shown that it is a continuation of the slowdown of the Indian economy, and the same is also observed in employment related sector. And as already Professor Shivachithappa has mentioned, the growth rate of Indian economy that has been observed a negative growth rate during the period of COVID-19 with 1 or 2 positive growth in the quarter, 1 or 2 quarters. So 1 or 2 quarters. So that's why the same picture, the same kind of say the trend has been observed in the last 1 year in the employment also, and also in the sense that so the economic slowdown has continued during the COVID-19 also, but it is exacerbated. That means, so there is a significant losses of jobs due to because of this COVID-19 that has been observed in the previous graph. And this graph compare the 2 months, that is the April 2019 employment and April 2020 employment, that is comparing 1 year differences in the unemployment rate. So the red bar, horizontal bar, represent the unemployment rate in these states in April 2020. The blue one is related to 1 year before the COVID effect, that is April 19. In all the states, as of course we were noted with only 1 month, or also of course we have noted between 2011, 12 and 17 and 18, the same kind of picture has been observed, but the rate of unemployment rate, as earlier I have told you, that it is increased. It is increased in the last 1 year, Yeah. So, for example, if you take West Bengal, it was just 6.5% of unemployment rate in 2019 April, but almost it is increased 3 times, 17.4%. Whereas in UP, it is around doubled from 11.1 to 21.5. As already we have seen in case of Tamil Nadu, it is almost 50%. So it was just 1.2%. That was the, of course, one among the state which has the least unemployment unemployment rate in April 19, in 19 or 2019, but it is almost 45 times the unemployment rate has been increased in Tamil Nadu, from just 1.2% of unemployment in April 2020, just in 1 year, okay, of this, that is in April 2020, that is around 50% or 49.8%. The same also is observed in terms of Karnataka, of course. So it was just 0.5%, but it has been increased to 29.8 or almost 30%. And overall observation of these, okay, this slide or this diagram is that, so the 4 states, that is Tamil Nadu, Jharkhand, then Haryana and Bihar, they have, okay, an unemployment rate of more than 30%. So and of course even more than 40%, not 30%. They have more than 40%. And some of the states, so like UP, then Odisha, Maharashtra, then Karnataka, so these and including Andhra Pradesh. So they have higher, their unemployment rate is higher than 20%. So just by observation of this diagram, this unemployment rate has been exacerbated during this period of just 1 month. So in 2020, so the workforce, the Indian workforce, lost their job because of the sudden close down of the economic activities or the lockdown announcements and so on, restrictions and so on so on by the government of India. And this is a representation index of job loss across the states of India, prepared by, of course, the Ajim Premji Institute. The Ajim Premji Institute also has conducted some surveys related to the unemployment rate and effect of COVID-19 on various sectors. This representation index is just the ratio of the state's share in the employment loss to its share in the total pre-COVID total workforce. It is just a ratio. The ratio is the employment loss in the total share of the state. So here this red states like Uttar Pradesh, so then Delhi, so then Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So they have shown a higher value of the representation index. That means the job loss has been found in these states during this 1 year in these 4 important states. So then the next is from the value is 1.2 to 1.6 in other states. The Karnataka is 0.4 to 0.8. So this is just the across the states how the job loss has been, okay, observed based on the total share of their job in the job market. And the same, of course, is been explained here. And this is another analysis. This diagram or the figure that indicates or that depicts the extent of job loss with varies directly with the case. That is, the number of the cases which are reported during that period and the job loss. So just observe that red line, okay, the red line. So this is of course a regression line. In other words, we can say that, or event regression line normally, which is called. So based on this, what they were found, or this study was found that the job loss is higher with the higher number of cases, or that is where in the state which have a higher number of the COVID cases, the job losses are also higher. So earlier we have noted that UP, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Haryana, Delhi. So the Delhi is the highest, okay, the job loss during that period which we have been observed that, because in Delhi the highest number of cases were reported, as of course all of us we have been observed in the first wave. So that's why there is a kind of relationship that exists between the number of the cases reported in the states with the job losses. So the number of the cases and the job losses are positively related, or in other words, so where the number of the cases are higher, the job loss is also higher. That is the summary of this discussion related. So then the next analysis is related to the 1 year of unemployment. Okay, in rural and urban and the total. 1 year of unemployment rate means from January 2020 to May, even May 2021, more than 1 year. So so yeah, not January, yeah, June. It is not, sorry, it is not January. It is June. 1 year from June 2020. Okay, from June 2020 to May 2021. This analysis also includes the May data that has been reported by the monthly unemployment statistics of the CMI data. Hence, this diagram is drawn or derived or drawn based on the data of that CMI monthly wise unemployment rate. And the line, the curve here, that curve which have been observed, that gives you the 2 periods moving average. It is a trend line. So this trend line that has been shown you that, so there is some volatility. That is, there is some variations in the level of unemployment. So it was high during the immediate months, or the immediate effect of that COVID-19 pandemic. That is in the month of say April, May, June, and so on. And because of ease of lockdown, that is the restrictions by the government, and there is a recovery in the economic activities because of that lift of the lockdown and so on by the government, and some stimulus packages by the government. So the unemployment rate has been slowly declined. But whereas in case of December and January, December 20 and January, somehow there is an increase, but in February and March of 2021, so again there is a slowdown or decline in the unemployment rate. But after the second wave, might be have been observed that the unemployment rate is higher even compared to the previous level, especially of June or May of the previous year. For example, in the overall, so the level of unemployment rate according to the CMA's report is almost 12%. It is 12%, and it is higher in case of the urban area, so nearly 15% in case of urban area, and whereas it is around 11% in case of rural area in May 2021. That is just in the last month. In the last month, the Indian unemployment rate is 12%, and 15% in case of urban area, and 11% in case of rural area. That's why, though there is a reduction in unemployment, so that has been observed in the third quarter of the last financial year. But at the end of the last year, that is in December, again there is an increase in unemployment. Then there is a slight decrease in the unemployment in the first 1 or 2 months in this current year. But again after the April and May, in the last 2 months, the unemployment rate has been increased because of the second wave of this coronavirus. And of course, the same is of course shown. That is the diagrammatical representation. So this is a tabular representation. And in terms of, I will get into that later. We have one more discussion related to the education related analysis. So this is again the 1 year. This is in the last 1 year. This is the last 1 year. The labor force participation, UER means unemployment rate. This is the greater labor force participation, greater unemployment rate. This is the one of the new classification that has been found in the CMI reports regarding to the labor force and unemployment rate, location wise and gender wise. So the greater labor force participation refers to the labor force participation is subdivided like this. That is, the persons who are unemployed, willing to work, and seeking for job. Okay, and there are some people, they are unemployed. Okay, they are unemployed, they are willing to work, but they are not seeking for job. So in calculation of the unemployment, Okay, in calculation of the unemployment, in calculation of this labor force participation, the CMI has classified these unemployed persons who are unemployed, willing to work, but some are seeking the job, seeking for job, but some are not seeking for job. So based on that classification, of course, they have used the new phenomena like a greater labor force participation and the greater unemployment rate. This greater labor force participation includes that who are willing to work and unemployed, and but they are not okay, seeking for job. They are included in this labor force participation also. Okay, so that is just the definition and the difference with the LPR and the GLPR and UER and the GUER. In totally, during this 1 year, okay, during this 1 year, okay, the labor force participation was 67.53, whereas just observe the female force participation was just 9.45. On the average, it is 40.34. Just observe, earlier I have shown you that before COVID-19, it was around say 46 or 47%. But during this COVID period, further decline in the labor force participation because of a negative say expectations of the workers regarding the slowdown economic activities and the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. That's why, so the labor force participation rate was very poor, very poor. That is only around 40% overall, and it is just around 10% in case of the females. And the unemployment rate, so it was 6.4%, and it is for the year as an average. It is year as an average, and 13.28 or 13% for the female. Almost double unemployment rate has been found in case of female. Say from observation of this figure, what we can infer that. So the most hit workers because of this COVID pandemic are the female, because the unemployment rate is very high for this female category. And the greater unemployment rate, even after, of course, including that persons who are seeking for the unemployment, but there is not much difference. Only there is around 1 or 2% increases in this. But where if you compare greater unemployment rate, so it is 26% in case of the females. It is 7.1%. Overall, it is 10%, 10.2%. As earlier diagram, you have noted that. So that is 10.2% all over India. So this is regarding the 1 year effect. So that means, so during this the COVID during this 1 year of COVID period, the unemployment rate has been increased, and the labor force participation as a whole increased, both for the males and the females, and also as a overall. The picture is not, of course, much different, as of course we are noted, between the urban and rural area. So in urban area, that has been declined. Even it is even less than the overall labor force participation rate. The overall labor force participation rate was 40%, but it is only around 37% or 37.5%. Okay, and unemployment rate is higher in case of urban area compared to rural area. So that's why, because of this pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, so that has been increased the unemployment rate. Labor force participation has been declined in the last 1 year. That is evidenced by this. And as just I have told you that the impact of COVID-19 has not a similar uniform effect on all the workers. As just we were noted that that workers working in different sector can be classified into sectoral, then based on gender, based on location, like rural and urban already we have noted, male and female which are already noted, and also on the occupation structure, and also on the level of education. So if you take, for example, the women, as already we have learned, we have been observed, and from, of course, previous pre-COVID type of analysis, and from also in the COVID period in the last 1 year, from the few diagrams and the data we have been shown that. So this COVID-19 crisis threatened undo some of the recent gains in the gender equality. That's why there was an improvement before at the international level also. Before the hit of this pandemic, there was some improvement in gender equality. But because of this COVID-19 pandemic, okay, so this gender inequality has been increased in terms of income, in terms of wealth, in terms of their income, in terms of their employment, and so on. So that has been observed even at the international level and also at the national level or in Indian context. That's why. So there is that even in case of the labor market. So this gender inequality has been increased, as we have shown in we have been observed in the previous analysis. Then the next part of our discussion is month-on-month change in unemployment for the rural and urban sector. Just of course we have been noted that in terms of the overall 73 million jobs losses as compared to the March that has been found in April. And employment in rural India recovered through May, July, and declined again till December in the last year, bearing a recovery in September. So that has been shown in this area diagram. The blue is rural unemployment rate. Okay, the urban is this one. So this shows the lowest employment opportunity was in April of 2020, and after, of course, May up to May, June, July, the 3 months in the last year. So there was an improvement both in urban and rural areas in terms of the improvement in the employment status. But after that, so just observe that. So this area is very close to zero represent. So there was no significant improvement in the employment in the last months of 2020. Occupational wise, that is another type of analysis we can do by classifying the employment based on the occupation. That is, the biggest loss of employment was seen in the hawkers and daily wage category. Their employment recovered through May, July, but declined in August and October, with a smaller gain in September, then December, and the same kind of rural and urban, So the same pattern has been also observed in case of this the occupational structure. The diagrammatic representation of this has been shown here. So here, according to this report or this survey, they have classified the workers based on their occupation into the business persons, salaried persons, then hawkers and daily wages, and the farmers and the others. So the highest, the loss or the hit of this COVID-19 has been observed for daily wage workers and the hawkers. That is the area might be or been observed that. So the area is largest for this group of occupation, and the business. The second one, but there is an improvement in the next period, next 2 or 3 months after April of 2020, but after the August of 2020. So again, just we have been observed that almost all these occupations improvements is very, very slow. Then the age-wise impact of this coronavirus in the last 1 year. So this table shows the labor force participation, employment and unemployment by the age groups. Again, this has been taken from the CMI reports. So the classification for every 4 years. Just I have marked some important columns here, like labor force participation and unemployment rate. Along with that, here the labor force in terms of size, population in size, employed in size, and earlier I have told you that unemployed but willing to and active job seekers, and they are not inactive job seekers. So they are also given here. But if I take only the labor force participation and unemployment rate, so the unemployment rate is very high for the age of 2024 and 15-19, of course. So 15-19. We need not give much importance to that age group because those are the persons who are in the education. So hence, if you take 20 to 24 and 25 to 29, so nearly it is 40%. Okay, for 38 and then 48% between 20 to 24 and 25 to 29 years. 9 years. That's why the highest unemployment in the last 1 year, which has been observed, other than that 19 age, is from 20 to 29. That accounts 48%. That is why the 48% of the unemployment which we have seen in the last 1 year, according to this report, is in the age group of 20 to 29. That same has been shown here in the diagrammatical representation. Then this is another diagram, of course, which shows the same, the age, sex, caste, location, and migrant status. Thus far, of course, we have noted about the 1 year, or the 1 year analysis of the COVID-19 with age, sex, and location. But now we have 2 more variables here. That is the caste and migrants. If you take the caste group, upper caste, middle caste, Dalits, and the tribal population, just observe the most hit of this pandemic on the occupational structure of the middle class, followed by the Dalits and the weaker sections of the society. That's why. So even in terms of the caste, okay. So caste, this COVID-19 has affected highly on the middle class people, followed by the Dalits. And in case of the migrants, as of course Professor Shivachithappa has mentioned, and all of you have been observed the clips of or the TV news, that is the flow of the people from urban areas to rural areas. So might be that has been observed in terms of the data. That is nearly 70% of the migrants are hit by this COVID pandemic. So this is about the caste and the migrant type of status and their effect, that is the COVID effect on these people. And again, the educational status effects, that is the impact of this COVID-19 on the education status. So earlier we have already noted that it is the pre-COVID period. So even in the COVID period also, so the highest unemployment rate which has been observed in case of this graduates and greater than graduates, higher than graduate degree, that is 22.5% in the last 1 year. And this is in the last 4 months. That is, last 4 months means in the months of say 2021, January, February, March, and April. And of course, the May data is not included here. So in all these months, of course, the labor force participation rate is around only 40%, and unemployment rate, of course, that has been increased. Increased. Of course, that has been, of course, decreased up to March and April, of course, up to March, but that is April that has been increased. So why? Because it is the effects of the second wave. April data here shows there is an increase once again in the unemployment rate. There is a decrease in the further decrease in the labor force participation, and further increase in the unemployment rate both in rural area and urban area. So it is due to because of this second wave, impact of the second wave. So hence it increased from around 6.5% in May to almost 8% in March for the totally. So 7 to 9% in case of urban area, 6 to 7% in case of rural area. So this is probably the April of 2021 represent, or this data represent, the impact of the second wave on the status of unemployment in totally and location wise, rural and urban. And probably the last but not the least, related to our impact analysis, is related to the income loss during this lockdown period, for the poor households. So the highest income loss has been observed for the poor. So of course, this survey or study has classified the peoples based on the decile level, that is divided these workers into deciles. That is 10. That is the first decile. D1 represent, that is the 10% of the poorest 10%. D10 represent the richest 10%. Just compare these two, that's all. Just compare these two. So the highest income loss that has been observed for the poorest. Though there is an income loss for the richest 10%, but the magnitude is negligible. So that is 20%. 20%. Whereas 100% in case of the poor law, that is the poorest 10% of the people. So this is the income effect. But of course, my discussion is not related to the impact of this COVID-19 on the income, on the poverty, on the inequality. And of course, as I have told you that, and all of us knew that. So this COVID-19 had an impact on every nook and corner of the human life, that is the economic life of the human being. So we can have also a discussion related to the impact on poverty, impact on inequality, impact on income, and so on. So just to show you, because the employment is one of the most important indicators of the economy. If the peoples are not able to get an employment, and that has several repercussions on the human life or the person's life. So one such repercussion, if a person is unemployed, is loss of income, and so on. Of course, we can extend that discussion. So this is about a brief discussion on a pre-COVID status of employment in India. Then the effect of COVID-19 is just a continuation of that slowdown of economic activities. The same has been observed in case of employment status during the last 1 year of this COVID period. So then the last part of my discussion, of course, already I have crossed the limit. So I don't want to get into much on related to this policy framework. This policy framework, of course, I have taken from the ILO reports. They have suggested some important key policies to resolve these problems of the economies from the COVID-19, and the first they have they called these as the pillars of the policy framework for the countries of the world, like the stimulating the economy and the employment. So that means by making use of fiscal policy and the monetary policy, government has to stimulate the economic activities. By stimulating economic activities, the employment also stimulate by lending and financial support with specific sector, including the health sector. The first pillar. The second pillar is that supporting the enterprises, jobs and income. In terms of the extending social protection to all, implement the employment retention measures, and provide financial or tax and other reliefs for the enterprises to stimulate the investment activities. Then the third one is protecting the workers in the workplace. So like strengthen the occupational safety, because in that period, the workers they have a fear with the working place. So might they get infected if they go for work. So that's why the safety has to be provided for the workers, adopt the work arrangements and so on related to this protecting workers and the work, relying on the social dialogue for the solutions. So that means, that is the fourth one, is strengthen the capacity and the resilience of the employees and workers organizations. That's why there should be a dialogue has to be arranged between the workers and the employers that improves the coordination between, and improves the quality of improves the job at this social because of the social dialogue, and based on the works conducted by the Indian researchers, and also the reports which have been suggested, the following suggestions regarding to improve the life of the people during this COVID period. So that is who are worst hit by this COVID pandemic. Extending free rations under the PDF, then cash transfer for few months. Some studies, of course, reports they have mentioned 3 months cash transfers, and expansion of the engine array, because all of us we were noted. So there is a sudden increase in the demand for jobs under the MG Nareka. So, and that has been that entitlement of the work, the number of the days should be increased from 100 to 150. So, because if there is a demand for the in the rural areas, and the same kind of pilot type of work should be, or the program should be implemented in urban areas. That is the urban employment program, because as we have noted that even in the urban areas, so the worst has been found. So in the districts which are worst hit by the pandemic, so a pilot's urban employment program has to be introduced, mainly focused for the women workers. And the next is the increasing the central contribution to age-old person. That is another important weak group most hit by this COVID pandemic is the old persons, aged persons, because they are unable to work. So because their physical body is not, of course, in a position to work. So that's why the government has to increase the old age pension of at least to 1,500 rupees per month. And also the one more suggestion given by the reports and the research work is that enrolling all MG Narega workers who do construction work as registered workers under the Building and Other Construction Worker Act. So by doing this, so they can access social security benefits. So of course, as you already noted, that the majority of the 90% of our labor force are in informal sector without having any social security. So just by, of course, including these workers are the MG Narega workers under this BOCW Act, so they might get some social benefits, or they are able to access into social security benefits. So these are the few the suggestions or the policies, recommendations given by the research work, both by ILO and in context. So with these words, I stop my discussion. So I hope I have taken almost 1 hour 15 minutes in my discussion. So if I am taking too much time, so excuse for that. And so now I over to Principal Sir, Lokesha.
So thank you, sir.
Really, sir.
You have deal with a comprehensive presentation regarding implication of COVID-19 on employment. Yours starts from 1918 influenza and directly reach to COVID-19 impact to concentrate on topic. Sir, wonderful presentation. I believe all the participants enlightened by your presentation. So thank you, sir. So I request our honorable CEO to interrupt and share his views, sir. Sir, please over to CEO, sir.
Lokesh, Jai Sri Gurudev.
Jai Sri Gurudev, sir. Jai Sri Gurudev.
Now the time allotted for this webinar has been extended by more than 1 hour. Do you still think there is scope for me to speak, taking more time, taking the time of all the listeners? Do you think I have a time to speak?
So,
Wind up.
hello, sir.
Already time is already exceeded.
So no, sir, no, sir. You can make use of your own time, sir.
Anyway, thank you very much. I don't want to take much of your time, but whatever I am trying to speak is only my random thoughts, not prepared to the extent our resource persons have prepared. Their presentation was not only a classroom lecture-like, but also a research-like. It is useful for both lecturing and research. Congratulations to both of them. Now, regarding job opportunities in the education sector is one aspect I would like to speak. And the other one, other than the education sector, how other sectors are affected has been amply reflected in the lockouts that government has been doing for the last 6 months or more. So coming to the education sector, if you remember, in the second half of 20th century, between 1950 and 2000, during that period, and also up to 2020, 3 major national education policies have come into operation. One in 1968, the second one in 1986, and the third one is now 2020. Apart from these major national education policies, there were also recommendations by various experts. One such recommendation during the latter part of 20th century, between 1950 and 2000, was de-link jobs from degrees. A very interesting argument. One, we have to de-link jobs from degrees. Providing jobs for graduates, whether it is general graduates or technical graduates or professional graduates, it is not the duty of the government or of the institution. It is the duty of the individual themselves. So there was no correlation between the graduation obtained from a higher education institution and the job provided to them. The idea of providing job for the graduates in the education sector started when these discipline-oriented universities have started. Medical universities, engineering universities, discipline-oriented universities were started in the late 20th century. There they have started linking the graduates with employment. Whichever institution gives the maximum number of employment, that was supposed to be the best institution, especially the engineering institution. So in the background of the previous policy and the present policy, the idea of providing jobs is of a recent origin, relatively. Now, how this providing jobs for the graduates has been affected by the COVID-19. Again, the job availability for general education graduates and technical and it varies very highly. The other day when I was talking about the number of colleges in the country, numbering about 40 to 50,000 colleges, of which 60% are arts, science, commerce colleges. Of these colleges, the people who are taking jobs was hardly statistical wise 15%. 15%. Whereas in the case of technical institution, they claim the job opportunities for their graduate has been provided to the extent of 60%, 70%, sometimes even 100%. That is how the quality of institution has been graded. So, job was not the criteria for the graduates, as I said earlier. But as a result of this COVID, what has happened? I must say, threat has become an opportunity. Most of the time, our honorable resource persons have projected loss of jobs. True, there are loss of jobs also. At the same time, a threat can be converted into opportunity. In a way, COVID has provided an opportunity for providing more jobs. How do I substantiate it? For example, governments, either the central government or government of Karnataka, have arranged a number of job melas, which was not there earlier. Job melas. And statistics were given during this job mela. So many people got jobs, In addition, skill development directorates have been started, providing skills, resulting in creation of jobs. Then Karnataka state has been referred as investor-friendly state. One of the statistics says that during 2021, out of 1,432 new investments were made, costing about 4 lakhs and odd rupees. Government of Karnataka has invested 1,06,000 crore, amounting to about 40% of the Government of India investment. So that is why Karnataka is also referred as investor-friendly state. In another statistics which talks about the substantial development goals of Government of India, Karnataka stands fourth in the country in terms of investment and providing employment. In one of the statistics, the local people have been preferred for employment purposes, and in the investment process, something like 2.2 lakh jobs have been planned to be created. So during COVID, job melas have increased, skill development process have increased, investment has increased, and recently, yesterday, there was Yoga Day, Global Universe Yoga Day, in which Prime Minister, under the Prime Minister Kaushalya Vikas Yojana, has started identifying, they already identified 1 lakh non-medical people and giving them training, investing about 300 crores of rupees. It is another job opportunity. And when you take the national education policy also, there has been a lot of focus on vocational courses, both at the school level and at the graduation degree level. So therefore, there are a number of examples wherein the impact of COVID, that kind of a COVID disaster, but as a COVID disaster, we have been able to provide more and jobs, more investment, all kinds of things have happened during, almost like a challenge. Anyway, this is one component, people can discuss about it. Now I said impact of lockouts. I talked about very general way, random way, the job opportunities in the education sector. Now in the lockout sector, so many sectors have been affected during lockouts. Not only the IT sector, the industrial sector, the business sector, and all people in the low income group. For them, Government of Karnataka has provided 1,250 crores rupees, further added 500 crores of, some kind of a money for them to live during this COVID disaster. Now, my last question to our resource person would be, now in the education sector, what kind of job loss has taken place at the degree level, whether it is the general education or technical education or professional education, what kind of job loss have affected the faculty members? And what is the remedy for that? This is number one. As a result of the job loss, whether the delivery of education in terms of teaching, learning, evaluation, one component, research is another component, extension is the third component. Teachers are supposed to participate in all these three areas, mostly in the university level, but also partly at the college level. As a result of this COVID and job loss, don't you think that there has been a decline in the quality of these three areas, teaching, learning, evaluation, the research, and the extension? What suggestion or the survey that is possible? Because the research persons have made a reference to the survey made by Premji Institute. Likewise, Mysore University or any other university could think of job loss in the education sector and what are the remedies that one can suggest as a result of survey. And that is one face of the coin. The other face of the coin is the participation of these faculty members in these three areas. As a result of job loss, the quality of delivery has also declined. What are your suggestions? What kind of survey can be made? What kind of research aspects is possible in order to improve the quality of these three areas, even in spite of job loss? I think I have said enough. Sorry for my intervention to that extent, even though my thoughts are random thoughts, but I appreciate the efforts made by our principal, Mr. Lokesh. Yes, we have about 20 colleges in our education trust. And Lokesh, the principal of the college, has done wonderful, organizing seminars in different areas. He has done the maximum number of seminars in the last 7-8 months. Heads off to Mr. Lokesh. You continue to do this kind of job. I know you started doing this kind of job, keeping your idea of getting a better grade in Naik. The college has already got, what grade you have got?
P double plus, sir.
P double plus. So he is aiming at A. With the kind of efforts he has made for the last 1.5 years, is sure that our college would get A grade. I wish that college to get the A grade, and wish him the kind of enthusiasm in which he has started doing this kind of job would continue. And I wish the prosperity for the college. And thanks for the resource persons like Mr. Shivachithappa, Professor Mahesha, for responding to our request and sparing their valuable time in sharing their presentation with all our teachers, students, and other participating colleagues. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mahesha. Hello. Hello. Sir, Mahesh sir, mute ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. Sir, unmute ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. Mahesh sir.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. So thank you for your comments, sir. Ramegowda sir. Sir has addressed related to the opportunities under this difficulty or the risk that is by the government and also by the other institutes. So there are some the skill improvement related programs due to because of having that skills. So the workers or the peoples in general can increase their ability, and of course they got or they can grab the opportunity that has been created by the pandemic. But in my to my knowledge, related to that kind of opportunities, especially in times of this the high risk, because as we were noted that, and we have learned from the literature related to the impact of COVID-19, so that is considered as the biggest risk that is the humankind that has been faced. So during this kind of risk, how many people in India with their lack of knowledge, lack of skill, so they are able to make use that opportunity for their progress. So hence, and of course my discussion is related to an aggregate level, a general kind of effects of this COVID-19 as a labor force. So that's why, though there are some growing say sectors even during this COVID-19, but that is only only in case of the limited sectors. Overall, so the effect is negative. So because of that, probably we have a negative kind of effect on the economic growth and also employment. But wherever the opportunity is available, so the laborers or the workers has to adapt themselves to the changing world. So that is that is the phenomenon which all of us knew, not only at this time of pandemic. So who only survives in their life or in this time of the risk, so who are adapt to the situation. That's why we should have to by the government or by the person himself, they should have to develop a skill for adapting to the changes. A person who adapt to the changes always grew. That adaptability might be here through upgrading our skills. So that skill by his own or by supporting by the institutions and the government. That's why there are some opportunities. That opportunities has to be grabbed by the people or the workers. But in my knowledge, that is not universal. It is only limited and limited to only few sectors and also for the few peoples. Not it is for all. So this is my opinion related to our use of opportunity. Then related to, of course, as her suggested for all of us as the teachers, either at the degree college level or at the university, to conduct a survey related to impact on the education level. Of course, sir, we can do that because to my knowledge, around 4,000 teachers in the undergraduate college are guest faculty, sir. So that 14,000 are, of course, either relieved job or they are not working. Either they are paid or not. Of course, I have no knowledge related to that because from many months they are not paid. So just if you take into account that are take into account our consideration of that. So say around more than 250 or 400 colleges, undergraduate colleges, say they are run during the 1 year with only permanent faculty. I hope it is only 30 to 40% are the permanent faculty. The remaining 60% are guest faculty. So that's why what kind of education that has been, of course, in this 1 year, that has extended by the teachers at the undergraduate level, and also in universities also. In most of the universities, I hope Ramegowda sir knew it. So in my university, if I take, so nearly say 50 to 60% of the permanent job are vacant. So in most of the departments also, at the university level also, we have guest faculty. But fortunately in Mysore University has appointed the guest faculty and they are delivering their work from the last 1 year. So, but the implications of this, so we can do a survey only on this by taking into account, of course, both the teachers and the students. So what kind of learning they of course have during this online learning, and whether that is we have to need to check about the efficacy of this online learning, because even with my classes we have 60 students, but out of that 60 students only 30 to 40 students were joined to our classes due to because of various problems, as all of us knew that. So these are the several problems so which we are facing as a teacher and also as a student in terms of imparting education. And other than that, the impact of this on the life of that faculty or the trust they have doing all these activities, we can do a work on that. So certainly, of course, some of our teachers motivated from your speech related to measure the impact of this COVID-19 on the education the higher education level, sir. Hello, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
ನಾವು ಕನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಸರ್. ಸರ್
ಆಗ್ಬೋದು.
ಸಿ ಯು ಸರ್.
ಮಾಡಿ
ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಲ್ಲ ಸರ್? ಓಕೆ ಓಕೆ ಓಕೆ.
ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಕೋವಿಡ್-19 ಆನ್ ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಈ ವಿಷಯದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸಂಪನ್ಮೂಲ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಯಾಗಿ ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ ನೀಡಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಎಂ ಮಹೇಶ್ ಸರ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಹಾಗೂ ಈ ವಿಚಾರವಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಶ್ರೀ ಆದಿಚುಂಚನಗಿರಿ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟಿನ ಸಿಇಒ ಆಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಎನ್.ಎಸ್. ರಾಮೇಗೌಡ ಸರ್ ಅವರು ಕೂಡ ತಮ್ಮ ಮಾಹಿತಿಯನ್ನ ತಿಳಿಸ್ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರಿಗೆ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳನ್ನ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಮುಂದುವರಿದಂತೆ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಅಂತಿಮ ಘಟ್ಟವಾಗಿ ಅತಿಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಹಾಗೂ ಭಾಗವಹಿಸಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಹಾಗೂ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಯಶಸ್ವಿಗೆ ಕಾರಣಕರ್ತರಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಅಭಿನಂದನೆಗಳನ್ನ ತಿಳಿಸೋದಿಕ್ಕೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾಲೇಜಿನ ಅರ್ಥಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ ವಿಭಾಗದ ಮೋಹನ್ ಸರ್ ಅವರು ಈಗ ಅಭಿನಂದನೆಗಳನ್ನ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತಾರೆ.
ಜೈ ಶ್ರೀ ಗುರುದೇವ್. ಆದಿಚುಂಚನಗಿರಿ ಮಹಾಸಂಸ್ಥಾನ ಮಠದ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಗುರು ಪರಂಪರೆಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕರಿಸುತ್ತಾ ಈ ದಿನದ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾಲೇಜಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಅರ್ಥಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ ವಿಭಾಗದಿಂದ ರಾಜ್ಯ ಮಟ್ಟದ ವೆಬಿನಾರ್ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಏರ್ಪಡಿಸಲಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಸೊ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಾಸ್ತಾವಿಕ ನುಡಿಯನ್ನು ನುಡಿದಂತಹ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಕೆ ಶಿವಚಿತ್ತಪ್ಪ, ರಿಜಿಸ್ಟ್ರಾರ್ ತುಮಕೂರು ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾನಿಲಯ ತುಮಕೂರು, ಇವರಿಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾಲೇಜಿನ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳನ್ನ ತಿಳಿಸಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಈ ವಿಚಾರ ಸಂಕಿರಣದ ಸಂಪನ್ಮೂಲ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಯಾದಂತಹ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಮಹೇಶ್, ಅರ್ಥಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ ಪ್ರಾಧ್ಯಾಪಕರು, ಅರ್ಥಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ ವಿಭಾಗ ಮೈಸೂರು ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾನಿಲಯ ಮೈಸೂರು, ಇವರಿಗೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾಲೇಜಿನ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಎಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳನ್ನ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತೇವೆ. ಹಾಗೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾಲೇಜಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದೇ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ನಡೆದರೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಸಿಇಒ ಸರ್ ನಮಗೆ ಪ್ರತ್ಯಕ್ಷವಾಗಿ ಸಹಾಯವನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಎನ್.ಎಸ್. ರಾಮೇಗೌಡ ಸರ್, ಸಿಇಒ ಆದಿಚುಂಚನಗಿರಿ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್, ಇವರಿಗೂ ಸಹ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾಲೇಜಿನ ಪರವಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳನ್ನ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತೇನೆ. ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಯಶಸ್ವಿಗೆ ಕಾರಣೀಭೂತರಾಗಿರುವಂತಹ ನಮ್ಮ IQAC ಸಹ ಸಂಚಾಲಕರಾದಂತಹ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ M.K. ಮಂಜುನಾಥ್ ಸರ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳನ್ನ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತೀವಿ. ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾಲೇಜಿನ ಪ್ರಾಂಶುಪಾಲರಾದಂತಹ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ B.K. ಲೋಕೇಶ್ ಸರ್ ಅವರು ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷತೆಯನ್ನು ವಹಿಸಿ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನ ಯಶಸ್ವಿಯಾಗಿ ನಡೆಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಮಾರ್ಗದರ್ಶಕರಾಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇವರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಅನಂತ ಹೃದಯಪೂರ್ವಕ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳನ್ನು ತಿಳಿಸ್ತೇವೆ. ಜೊತೆಗೆ ನನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಸಹೋದ್ಯೋಗಿ ಮಿತ್ರರು ಹಾಗೂ ಸರ್ವರಿಗೂ ವಂದನೆಗಳನ್ನ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತೇನೆ. ಜೈ ಹಿಂದ್, ಜೈ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಮಾತೆ.
ಸರ್ ನಮಸ್ತೆ ಸರ್. ನಮಸ್ತೆ, ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು ಸರ್.